Hello, everybody. Excited to be here today. How are you, Colleen?
Good. How about you guys? You excited to talk some business here or what?
Absolutely. Always love to jump on the Lawyer.com family. Love having the president of Lawyer.com with us, Colleen.
Well, I'm happy to be here, guys. Thank you for joining us. I think we're going to have a lively discussion today, right, Gary?
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. It's still morning where I am, but looking forward to today.
And we were talking about what is it that we want to cover today and what we want to talk about. And we start talking about the number one thing that a law firm that we see law firms missing today. And the irony is that we brought up the number one thing, and we were talking about this just earlier today, and each of us had something different. Each of us had something
Yeah.
that I think this is the number one thing. And so we're going to talk about the number one thing each of us believe, even though each of us may think a little differently about it. So we'll go ahead. We'll start with you, Gary. The number one thing you think law firms are missing today to really, and when I say missing, it's getting from where you are to where you want to be. And what is it that is missing and causing you to not make the progress you want?
Yeah. What's funny is you had asked me first before, and after Colleen shared, I'm like, yes, that's it. And then you shared, and I'm like, no, that's it. So um, they're all obviously really important, but I think I'm going to go back to what I initially said, and that was synchronicity. And then you guys, asked me what I meant by that, and I was just reminded. I think you both know I'm a big fan of Robert Cialdini's work, and and I look at business kind of like I do personal relationships, right? I mean, I want to like the people that I work with, and that's who I surround myself when I'm not working. And it's really difficult to be involved in a relationship, personal or business, if both sides aren't committed to that relationship, and if both sides aren't consistent with who they are in that relationship. And I say those two things, Chad and Colleen, really because when I think about how offices tend to run, it seems as though that one side isn't necessarily talking to the other. And I think it all begins with making sure everybody knows what's going on so that there's a smooth handoff. Think about the journey that the clients have. They're meeting a number of different people in the organization. They're going through different processes. And are those processes consistent, and are the people committed to the execution of those so that they have a uniformed decision? So that, in other words, the marketing, which maybe got the person to initially call in, it's really important that the person that answered the phone is aware of what was going on so they can be consistent with that message that the person heard. And that transcends all the way through. So I think, not to monopolize the whole time, because I think I could actually talk about this forever. But I think it's really important that people understand that it's an experience, and it needs to be a consistent experience all the way through. So I'm going to stick with my original choice and say synchronicity slash commitment slash consistency.
And you know what's interesting about that, Gary, is I had a friend who was building a house and he finished the home, and I was like, oh, home building. I don't know, Colleen, Gary, if you've ever built a home, but it's not a pleasant experience. You get frustrated, and you're getting all these different stories. And he told me, he's like, it was awesome. I was like, what do you mean it was awesome? He's like, it was an incredible experience. And I was like, why do you say that? And he goes, every person I talked to was aware of my situation, and there was no drop off in the experience. So they started from the marketing to the intake to the client, interaction with the attorney, and speaking symbolically here. But as he was building his home, it was everyone knew, oh, this is what you wanted, this is what's going on. And when we have that experience, to your point, Gary, where okay, remind me of who you are again. People are just like, oh no, I don't. And
Well, it's a good point, but how do you, and this is, advice to anybody watching, is how do you make sure that that message is consistent and that you're making sure that you're going from marketing to intake to make sure that everybody's in line with the company vision?
and a big piece of that equation is having the tools and resources. The reason why I think, and Gary, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason why I believe there's those gaps is because an attorney's trying to do too much. And they're trying to, so like, for example, Colleen, when attorneys sign up with LawyerLine, all of a sudden they're so excited, and you can go to lawyer.com and look at that LawyerLine experience, but they're so excited because someone's taking part of their challenge or what they
Sure.
had to do off their plate, so they can focus on the whole client experience. And so you take LawyerLine, that helps there. And then you take and then when you have someone helping you with reputation management, when you have someone helping you with, and they can go to lawyer.com and look at the different things we offer. But the point is, when someone is having help, it creates that more consistent experience. But you have so many attorneys that say, I want to do it all. I want to do, not necessarily I want to do it all, but they feel like they have to do it all. And that's where I think the gap occurs, or the challenge occurs.
Yeah, and when you said that, it just made me think of last week when we had Michael Gerber on talking about the E-Myth and how important that really is, that the attorneys have the time to work on their business and not in their business. And that can only be done, when you've taken a step back and you look at everything synchronistically, right?
And Colleen, you were actually not on that particular coaching call we had with a bunch of our lawyer.com coaching clients, but he was sitting there, and this one of the attorneys asked Michael Gerber a question like, I really like being an attorney. And Michael just came back and said, then you don't ever want to be an entrepreneur. And the attorney was taken back, but it was amazing. The attorney looked inward and was like, okay, he's right. I need to think more as a business owner and less as an attorney. And that's incredible insight.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought Michael came at him pretty hard, so I was like, oh no,
I was worried too. I was.
how's this gonna go? But the attorney was super receptive and was like, you know what, he's right. Because the challenge with attorneys is they don't learn a lot of the things that we teach and work on at lawyer.com. They don't learn that at law school. It's not what happens. And so,
right.
But you have to be committed to wanting to grow and be excellent. And that's why, and I know that's what fuels you, Colleen, at lawyer.com, helping people really achieve that level of excellence as an attorney. So
absolutely.
But okay, so we'll switch to you now, Colleen. Colleen, what was the number one thing that you came up with?
Well, I thought Gary had a good answer, but I think I can produce a better answer.
Throwdown, huh?
So we have a rule around here. The number one rule of business is focus. It is very, very, very important that you focus. What you measure will grow. What you focus your attention on will improve. So you need to sit down and say, okay, what are the top priorities that I need to be focusing on? How can I delegate it? Because one person can't do everything, although I would like to think I can. You can't. And the minute you set yourself up in that position, you're going to be outpaced by your competition. So it's really, really important that you say, okay, these are the goals of my firm, and I'm going to focus on goals 1, 2, and 3. And then from there, boom, you've set your goals out, you watch them, you improve them, and it's truly amazing what happens with focus.
And it's powerful. Boy, how do you get that focus though, Colleen? I mean, I know you're the president of lawyer.com. You run a very, very successful organization. How do you personally are able to maintain that focus with so much?
So I start every day. I have a red notebook that I carry everywhere. If you ever see me out and about, I will have my notebook. I write down every meeting that I have to go to, and I write down the goals that I want to achieve for the day, because I understand that I can't do everything in one day, but I say, what is the most important pressing matters that have to get done? And I love nothing more than that big fat check mark when I leave a meeting or when I achieve a goal. And that's what keeps me going. But it's important to understand that everybody has different processes to help them achieve their goals. That's just the way that works for me.
I love that.
And
Now, okay, Colleen, I do have to ask this question. Just I was speaking at an event with Simon Sinek, and Simon shared this. He goes, some people that love to check mark, they will do something that wasn't on their list and they'll add it to their list and check it off. Colleen, honestly, have you ever done that?
Oh, I'm sure I've absolutely done that before, but I can't recall recently doing it, but I will throw in some softballs for myself in the day because it's important to feel a win.
Yeah,
because that helps
sure.
you get to the next thing. So maybe it's like something very easy, like, hey, send a rah-rah email to John for a great job done, right? That's super easy for me to do. And
Right. Well, I'll just add mine's kind of a combination of what Gary and Colleen, both great insights.
Do your own thinking, Chad. Don't be
I
stealing
am
our
doing
idea.
I am doing my own thinking, but what I feel like really lacking in a lot of firms that we meet with and the coaching clients that we have at Lawyer.com is we're not focused on the client journey as much as we should be. Yep. And so you take focus and you take that synergy, or no, you said, Gary,
synchronicity.
You said, yes, synchronicity.
Pay attention, Chad.
It's a large word. It's a very large
it wasn't
word.
Good enough
I looked it up
focus,
before the meeting.
It was a big word. I have to sound it out for sure. But but you take those two things and you realize, wait a second, how we're missing out a lot on the client journey. And it's weird. And I know that a lot of us have felt this, that customer service in general seems to have really gone by the wayside, especially since COVID happened. It doesn't seem like people are really focused on the client experience as they should be. And there's a quote that I love from David Horsager that said, in every interaction, we increase or decrease trust. And so as we think about focus and as we think about that large word of
I don't know, synchronicity,
we need to realize that the client needs to be at the heart of that. And so they need to have that very consistent. And Gary, you also did mention that consistency from the moment you're marketing. You know, it's interesting. We'll meet with law firms that they're like, oh, we are the friendly, kind, loving law firm that focuses on the individual. And then they have that person that's answering the phone that's cranky and not nice, right? And it's like, wait, you have to create that consistent experience. And so to Colleen's point, really focusing on the client journey and making sure. And what amazes me, Colleen, is we have, so many clients here at Lawyer.com, and some are doing really, really well and generating a tremendous amount of revenue. And Gary and I were talking to one that was doing, they were doing like 15 million in revenue. And Gary and I asked them, we said, so someone who comes to you for, let's say, estate planning, are they having the same experience that someone that comes to you with family law? And they're like, no, not at all. And it's like, wait, what? And so if someone comes to this particular firm and gets a divorce, then they come back for an estate plan. It's totally different experience. And so creating that client focus to where they have that consistent experience across the board. And
well, it's tough when the car accident client, the potential revenue is that much greater than the one for the estate. So it's trying to balance that. I could absolutely see how that happens, but I'm not saying that it's good, but I could see how that happens.
Right. And so, and also remember, in every interaction, people are increasing or decreasing trust. And then all of a sudden they left after the car accident, personal injury, as a raving fan of this law firm. So they go back to get an estate plan. And then they're like, wait a second, what happened? Why all of a sudden did we have this inconsistency. And so
Right.
creating that consistent client journey. Now, what I want to emphasize though, and I'm taking two. I gave you all one.
Go
I'm
for it.
taking two
Go
real
for
quick.
it.
I believe the one thing that we've talked about, and I mentioned this earlier, is too many attorneys are thinking they have to do this on their own.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about how attorneys are made up. They are independent, driven, focused individuals, right? They've many of them, and if we could, and we should have on one of these lives that we're doing, is these attorneys and talk about how much sacrifice and what they went through to become an attorney. You know, many of them worked a lot of long hours and second jobs, and you know, really did so much to get to where they are today, right? So then they busted their tail through college and through law school, and then they get to the point and they're going, okay, I've done all of this by myself.
Right.
And so for them to stop and go, okay, you know what, I need some help. That's totally
Good point.
counterintuitive of who they are in their makeup.
Right.
100%.
And so I just want to emphasize, attorneys, that you don't have to do it all on your own. You can't. The greatest attorneys that we've ever worked with Colleen and Gary and I have ever worked with, are those who recognize and say, okay, where can I get help to where I want to be? So that was just my parting thought. I know I took two, and we're almost out of time on our live, and I took two. And Colleen and Gary, any parting comments before we wrap up?
You know, I was just thinking about when you were sharing that, what you had said earlier about the. I think there was some survey that you referenced earlier when we were speaking about what common denominator the most successful.
Yeah, they did a survey. Not to cut you off, just to give you context, Colleen, I was reading a survey where they took the 700 most successful CEOs in the United States of America to find out what was the one characteristic they all had in common.
What was it?
Okay, now you would think like, yeah, no, you're intrigued.
Yeah, try,
like,
guess.
Okay, I want to know what that is. You know what? I was thinking like driven, passionate,
Yeah.
hardworking, all
Sure.
those thoughts. Gary, go ahead, share with us.
Self-awareness.
Number
And-
one.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, but you know, it's just, I think it kind of touches on, I think maybe what we all said, and that is that if the attorney or the leader isn't self-aware of their strengths and weaknesses, the whole chain is going to fall apart. So understanding what you're good at and where you need help, what you should be doing and shouldn't be doing, it sounds like that's what that survey was saying, you know, right? I mean, know what your strengths are, know what your weaknesses are, and behave accordingly.
Perfectly said.
Yeah. Well, then I'm just going to tap out now.
Yeah, I was about to say on that one, I did know what Gary said. No, listen, it's great. I appreciate being on here with you guys. It's always fun to learn and grow and share our insights. And don't forget, we host weekly AI webinars every Thursday at 3:00, because a lot of what we talked about today, the client experience, focus, synchronicity, AI is a tool that will help all of that. So
yeah, I mean,
that's my remark.
Colleen, you talk about not doing it alone.
Right.
There are AI tools that, and I was on the last AI training you did. Oh my goodness, phenomenal. Take the time, and to Gary's point, where he was quoting Michael Gerber that was on our coaching call last week, work on your business. And that is one of the greatest things you can do, is just pause and absorb all of that knowledge from Annie and Colleen on AI and what's happening this Thursday at 3:00 Eastern.
3 p.m. Eastern.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Okay, well then I guess we'll see everyone then.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
care.
Take
See ya.
care.
Bye.
Bye now.